Reclaiming Timeless Ways, another episode underway. Mike Traster, along with myself, Simon Fuller. Glad to have you along with us, Mike.
Thank you.
And another episode, 89. Just getting ever so close to that 100 mark. Are we going to have a party when we get to that day?
We should.
Okay.
I'll buy the pizza.
All right. This one, The Price of Silence.
Yes.
This could go a lot of ways.
Well, I got a list of about 8 things.
Okay,
here.
let's get to it then.
I'd like to shorten this to just maybe find one idea in each of the 8 things. Medicine. You have a doctor who's he practices psychiatry, and he is a USDA 100% certified grade A cruel human being. He's a sadist. Everybody's afraid of him because he can label you into a cage. So he gets away with it for years and destroys life. I've seen it. Some clown in Colorado Springs many years ago. He'd be about 100 now, if he's still alive. You know who you are. You're an evil man. I got in his way twice. Cost me a job, but saved a life, or 2. So that was one. Cops. I pulled on the side of the road once, and there was a guy under a van. It flipped over on him. He rolled it down an embankment. He was drunk, sideways, and his kid was about 4 feet tall and 4 feet wide. He already had a barroom voice, this kid, from being around cigarette smoke and booze. My dad rolled the truck down the hill. I swear, just like that. I lifted the van off of him, which was extremely painful. Anyway, this cop showed up, and the guy was in my car. I brought him up the hill. I was going to bring him to a hospital, and the cop almost shot me because he was so agitated. So he was a man with profound psychiatric problems. And his partner said to me, "Don't agitate him, please." And he had pulled his gun on me 2 or 3 times while I was talking to him, quietly, many feet away, with my hands obviously not in a threatening position and clearly in view. And I asked him, I said, "Does anybody in your department know how disturbed this man is?" And he got dead silent. I told him, I said, he's going to get a good guy like you killed. That was 2. Number 3, when I went through my divorce, my kid was pretty upset. So without my permission, the school counselor put my kid, she not only didn't inform me, she didn't ask me, she didn't inform me, she did it around me, put him in this group therapy process, which they call milieu, which means everybody just jammed together. And there were kids in there who were actively suicidal, speaking their suicidal ideations to one another, giving each other ideas. "Oh, if I die, I won't feel bad anymore." This is a counselor, licensed, competent, caring, sane, moral, doing this shit to people's kids behind their backs. Well, I got some legal counsel, and there was a law in Washington State called the Uniform Information Access Act. Shut them down in 1 minute. I told them, "I will own you in a courtroom. You know that I know. And the only reason you did this is because you thought you knew I didn't know." Engineering. A bridge up in Minnesota collapses. Why did that bridge collapse? Now I'm going to trigger Simon's embarrassment and humor. 2 words, literally, pigeon shit.
The acid eats at it.
Yes, pigeon shit eats bridges. How come nobody ever invested the necessary amount of energy to solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
Politics in general. Stolen elections, scams with enemy nations, sending airplanes filled with cash to enemy nations. The list goes on and on. Silence. How much of that money came back as a thank you to the people who sent it? We'll never know because it was cash, right? Shrinks. Like I said, crazy shrinks who make sick people worse. And then you get a company maybe that builds a dangerous tire and they get away with it for years or something like that. Like I owned a set of Douglas all-season radials, horrible tires, perfect on dry ground, perfect. They didn't wear, they wore beautifully.
You know, it's just everything you're saying is reminiscent of, I can simplify this. And again, it ties back to me being a dad of a 12 and a 10-year-old. So we've watched different superhero movies over the past several years of our lives, right?
Right.
With great power comes great
responsibility.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's a superhero movie, but that's very legitimate to what you're saying. So, and we all have that responsibility in our respective positions. I'm in a media company. I have 10 people that work for me, okay? With me and for me, if you will.
Right.
It's my responsibility, just even in this small circle,
Right.
to do right in policies, procedures, workplace. I mean, just different things. It's my duty as a father, as a husband, to do right in those worlds. So when you're talking, a lot of what you were bringing up are specialists or those in a higher job rank, if you will. Think about all the people that you have a responsibility to.
Probably for each one you affect directly, they affect 3 or 4 directly.
That's an incredible impact, good or bad.
Right.
Because when you do the right thing, Mike, too, that trickles.
It's healing. Right. And you might save somebody's life, you know?
And not even know it. We had this very conversation with this show. Is anybody watching us? Does anybody care what we're saying? We don't know. This
Right.
isn't a two-way street. We're not
Right.
picking on you.
Right.
This is a show that we post. We don't get feedback necessarily on.
Today, I brought this up passionately. Is this worthwhile?
Has one person been impacted positively
God, I
because of
hope
it?
so.
I think so. I do.
I know my son tells me that he has a friend down in, I think in Georgia, who's a vet, and they tell him that what we talk about is helping him. So I know that one.
Which is, you know, part of what fuels what we do, and you just never know when a good thing can catch fire.
Right.
Unfortunately, it seems like bad travels faster than good.
It does, about 10 to 1, I'd say,
Yeah.
you know?
Think about that when you make a decision. Even with me and my son, again, I'm gonna bring this home because, you know, this show is for all those people that you talked about. This show is for you, for me, for you, as a father, a mother, a brother, a coworker. You have just as much right to do the right things in certain moments
Right.
in every bit of your life, because what you do.
You know,
trickle.
there's one other story, and this is about people's unapproachability, which is part of this. And usually when you have people in authority, they're more unapproachable.
Sure.
They design it that way because they don't trust the people around them. Number one, they don't want to be knocked off their ladder, right? So I had a friend, he had experienced a horrendous personal tragedy and loss, and he carried it around with him for decades. And it built up in him, and it changed him psychologically, and he kept it inside, although it would leak out from time to time. I'm not going to say what it was, but it was a horrendous loss. Total surprise and just horrible. He took his life. Now, when he finally started to go up the deep end, he was hospitalized, misdiagnosed, and mistreated, which worsened his underlying condition and pushed him over the edge, and he's dead, right? And nobody ever got in the doctor. And now after that, you know, apparently somebody was connected where he got his medical care, quote, at that facility. So suing them could have gotten that person fired. because they were part of that same group. So everybody's silent. My friend is dead. Very sad,
Yeah.
you know? But nobody ever came up to him and said, you know what, Bill? His name wasn't Bill. You're a big influential person around here, wherever here was. And, but you're valued, and you are struggling terribly with something. This is not a criticism. Maybe you wear your own criticism on your sleeve and say, hey, here's what I wrestle with, you know? But I value you, and I want you to value yourself enough to find a way to deal with this, you know? In the next show, there's something I'd like to talk about called Don't Dwell on the Date of Disaster.
It's a little bit of a teaser of what's to come.
Yes.
All right, well, the
So that's that.
price of silence, well, it's almost always bad and could lead to a true tragedy.
Absolutely.
So don't be
Absolutely.
silent.
Right.
We all have that duty obligation. All right, Mike, thank you. Thank you for joining us for another
Thank you.
edition of Reclaiming Timeless Ways. Have a great day.